So I was sitting around debating with myself earlier, like what is a video that is original enough that I could give my viewers that hasn't been discussed much in the knife world? It hit me like a ton of bricks. I could do a Chris Reeve video versus a Strider, or whatever, Chris Reeve versus a Strider. I've got an INKOSI at the house, I've got an SNG at the house, and I might as well. I've carried both, and I might as well compare them, and I might as well try to pick a better of the two, right? Full disclosure, this one belongs to me. This one does not. This belongs to my brother-in-law. Another full disclosure, I love the INKOSI, but I also love this knife. I really do. I love the grip. There's lots of things to love about them. I don't think either one of them's perfect. I don't think either one of them's like the go-to for me personally. If I was picking something for toughness and ruggedability, like the I might not pick a Strider. I may pick a Grayman Satu, just personally. I know we got the nice thick blade stock, and everybody's like, you can pry yourself out of a situation, all that stuff. Cool, man. I don't really find myself in those situations very often. Precision is what Chris Reeve's known for, and it's a good knife, man. It doesn't have the best action. They're not made for that. That just voided the warranty. I think there's maybe better options out there for me. But before we get into all of that, check out D&K Knives for your next knife purchase. They may have what you want. If they do, they also offer Sezzle. Sezzle, gives you the option to make those bad decisions hurt a little less, and you just spread out the payments. Don Farmer will bend over backwards to help you get what you want. So if there is something that you're looking for, check D&K first. And if you find something, well, by all means, use Apex10 for your 10% discount code. This will also get you free shipping for any purchase over $50. Don and I will appreciate it. Thank you. Back to the knives. Thanks, man. So what we got going on here is we have an INKOSI. It's got a modified blade. This knife is well used. You can tell the previous owner really loved this knife. He carried it a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. It's still not as sharp as I want it to be. It could probably use a regrind. It's getting a little thick behind the edge. I haven't decided on what I'm going to do with it yet. And then we have this beautiful Strider SNG with a gunner grip. I believe that's right, gunner grip. That's what everybody's saying anyway. Very grippy, almost hot spotty. I had, when I say hot spotty, I mean, look at my fingers here. If you grip this thing, it's leaving imprints in you. And that's good though. I mean, it's going to be there. The grip's going to be there. So which one would I choose? Listen, I think if you only had enough money to be able to buy one knife, and you were going to buy the best quality knife that you possibly could, and you ended up with one of these two knives, I don't think that anybody's going to look at you crossways and say, man, you made a bad decision. Both of these knives are phenomenal at what they do. I do prefer one over the other, but we'll get into that later. Now, for the reasons why people buy Chris Reeve most of the time is because of the precision. They are very, very precisely put together. The tolerances are extremely tight. Sometimes it's a little difficult for me. I've taken this knife apart about 3 times, once to clean it, and the other 2 just to see if I could get it back together a little easier than the times before. All 3 times was pretty difficult to get the knife back together and get it back together properly, like getting everything to snap back into place before you tighten up those screws. I have not turned a screw on a Strider. It definitely doesn't seem to be an imprecise machine, but it doesn't seem to be as precise. For instance, this lock bar, when Alan handed it to me, he was like, this one right here is newer, and it's got lock bar stick. It's got lock stick. I did, you'll probably be able to hear this. Maybe. So we'll see if you can hear it on the video or not. But it's rubbing a little bit. It's sticking a little bit. And I did use some pencil lead, some graphite, to make things go a little smoother. And it's not a permanent thing. And if we don't like it, we can rub it off, right? Okay. One of the things, I love these knives so much that I'm just going to go ahead and talk. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I'm not too crazy about. One, the action on the Chris Reeve INKOSI is not something that it's not something that I can reverse flick this thing most of the time. Anyway, it's not like a spider coat, man. It's not always there, you know. And like I said, the actions these knives weren't built for action, so like that would have just voided the warranty because you're not supposed to flick these knives. They're supposed to be slow rollers and all, you know, like and that's totally cool. But like I don't feel like I have as much freedom of this being my knife when they're built the way they are. But at the same time, they are built the way they are to stand the test of time. So I can respect it. I can respect it. But personally, if I had to choose between this and a Spartan Acrobus, I would grab an Acrobus. It's not as attractive in my opinion, but I believe it's made almost as well, and it's got a lot better action. And I've got my Acrobus loaned out right now, so I can't show you that. But I'm sure if you're not new to the channel, you know exactly what an Acrobus is. So the Strider, in my blue jeans, it rides just fine. But I did put this in my pockets while I had some cargo shorts on. I usually do a lot of driving in cargo shorts. I got a pair of shorts, probably just about a size too big from when I was a little bit heavier. And they're just extremely comfortable for driving 600 miles. So I'll stick those shorts on, and I usually put whatever knife that I have in my jeans in those shorts. With those cargo shorts and this knife, the knife turned around sideways, like it would flop around sideways. So if you don't have tight fitting jeans and you like your stuff a little bit baggy, then these knives aren't going to ride that well, or at least with my shorts and this knife. You know, I'll say that. I think that's because of I've started looking at it. I think it's just because of the pocket clip placement. If you'll notice on most other knives, really, you know, like this pocket clip is slanted backwards. I mean, I'm sorry, it's slanted down, like it goes from the top of the knife and it starts riding down past the lock bar. This one just rides on the lock bar. And I think if they would have taken the pocket clip and put it right here and done something similar, that it would have created an atmosphere where this thing could have rode a little bit better. But with it being right there in the middle of the knife, and it's got this weird ergonomic type of handle going on, it's, you know, like it just seems like maybe and I don't design knives, and I definitely don't design knives with pocket clips. So, you know, let me step back and say, you know, there's nothing wrong with the way they design the knife. I just think that there's probably a better place for the pocket clip. I don't know, like it might not be my place to say where that pocket clip should go. But for me, and like if I'm wanting to dress a summery, you know, like or whatever, if I want to dress for the summer and I've got a pair of shorts on and they're not like as tight as my jeans are, thing's gonna flop around. Like, you know, instead of sitting flat in the pocket, it kind of works its way sideways, and that's weird. You know, it just sits weird. But like that's about the worst thing I can say about the knife, aside from the lock stick. And the lock stick's really not that bad after I put a little bit of graphite on it, and we'll see how that rides out for the next few days. So do I have a clear winner between the two? I really don't. I would say like for me personally, I believe the Chris Reeve is more my style, but I do want a Strider for the sake of owning a Strider. I'm not sure if I want an SNG or maybe the SMF or whatever, but I do have a Strider on my radar. You know, like I would even I would love to check out a Microtech DOC. I think that would be like a pretty cool knife. Just you know, I don't have a Microtech in my collection. I don't have a Strider in my collection. Kind of knock out two birds with one stone. It's still a manual frame lock, and they're discontinued. So like, it'd just be kind of cool to own one of those. But regardless, I love both of these knives. I can't really say that enough. When I hear people say I buy a Strider over a Chris Reeve because it's tougher, well, Grayman Sawtooth's tougher. a Medford Marauder H is tougher, then, you know, like, I would say that both of those knives would put a Strider to shame. You know, like, they're not using aluminum and G10. You know, like, they're full titanium knives, and the pivots aren't jokes on those knives either. You know, like, I know the pivot system that they have on the Strider is good, and, you know, like, it may be even great. But, and I know there's stories out there of people prying, you know, their way out of cars and all kinds of shit. You know, that's great, man. But, like, if they had a Sawtooth on them, or if they had a Medford Marauder H on them, could they have gotten the job done as well? I don't know. I mean, like, you know, maybe if they had a fucking pry bar on them, could they have done the job just as well? Now, when it comes to, like, precision, there's some precise knives out there that I like that might not be as precise as the Chris Reeve, but they're more of a pleasure to carry. It is what it is. I mean, and we're just talking about Billy. You know, we're just talking about me. Like, you know, like I said, I would take a Spartan Acrobus 7 days a week over a Chris Reeve. Now that I have this, I don't want to get rid of it. I like it. But I do believe the Spartan Acrobus is on par, and it is a fair contender for a Chris Reeve knife. You know, like, I know that was a big debate when they come out. Chris Reeve helped Curtis I. Vito design the Acrobus, and so the Acrobus, you know, finds itself, was lent a lot of Sebenza characteristics, and I don't think that's a bad thing. At the same time, Curtis I. Vito designed a knife that was a lot more friendlier for flicking. You know, like, the Acrobus it's got great action. Like, neither one of these knives have great action. So if action's going to be a thing for you, if you're going to fidget with your knife and stuff like that, and no, neither one of these knives are supposed to be fidget toys. But if you're going to fidget with your knives, you know, keep in mind that people send Striders off to get lock work done after just maybe a month or two of carry. You know, like, a lot of times. Sometimes they say that the lock bar breaks in so much or so fast that you get a lot of over travel, which you shouldn't, right? But you get some over travel, and the lock stick becomes worse over time. Some people say that it breaks out, you know, of lock stick. Maybe it's a knife by knife basis. I don't know. Like I said, I've never owned one, so I'm definitely not your Strider expert. And this is the only Chris Reeve I've ever owned too. But even as much lockup as it's got, and it's got a lot of it, the lock moves freely. On the Strider, it kind of feels like the lock bar is a little long, you know? I don't know, man. I love both of these knives. If Alan said he would sell me this and it was in the price range that I could afford, I would definitely buy it. I can't throw stones at either one of these knives. I really can't. I just don't think that, when I hear that Holy Trinity stuff, like throw a Hinder in there and you'll have all three. Now, I definitely agree that everybody should experience a Hinder, a Strider, and a Chris Reeve, just so they'll know. But, man, you know, like, Strider's not the first knife I think of when I think of tough. Chris Reeve may be the most precise folding knife that you can buy. But when I think about precision, I think about Jack Wolf. There's just, like, it's hard to come across, you know, like, as neither one of these knives are shit, and I'm not trying to say that. You know, like, both of these knives are great. But if I need a good worker, if I need a good slicer, like, neither one of these knives are going to be that. Not right out of the box. There's a lot of people who get regrinds. I will say the Strider has a hollow grind and probably would be a better slicer longer term. It's not as thick behind the edge. It doesn't get as thick behind the edge. It is way thicker behind the edge than the Chris Reeve, right? This is like a 3/16 of blade stock, or close to it. Let's see, where are we setting at? .16, 1164. That will be. 1164, pretty close through. Yeah, so that's a pretty big blade stock, but it is hollow ground, so it makes the slicing abilities a lot better than the Chris Reeve, in my opinion. I don't know how many times this knife's been sharpened, so there's that too. But if I was gonna go for a slicer, I'd probably go for a PM2, right? And then, like I said, this is just me, but I'm not stuck to one knife. So if like I wouldn't choose a PM2 for quality. Like I was going to try to, like these knives. I'm not saying it's a shitty knife, but like there's things I would choose these knives for, and it's the joy to use them. Both of these knives are a joy to use. They're a joy to carry. They're a joy to talk about when you pull them out of your pocket and somebody sees that you have something different than what they've got in their pocket, and they're like, "Hey, I've been asked twice. Is that a Chris Reeve?" Like while I'm performing my job duties and I'm not talking about knives. And so I've actually been able to have conversations about the knife that I had in my pocket. I carried this for 3 days so far, man. I haven't had it. I haven't had it that long. I whipped it out of my pocket, and dude was like, "Man, is that a Strider you got there, or is that a clone?" And I was like, "No, it's a Strider. Not my Strider, but it's a Strider." Both of them are beautiful, right? Like I think both of them have been done very well. It's hard to choose one. It really is. Personally, I think I do pick the Chris Reeve just because it's a little bit more my flavor for 7 days a week. But there's nothing wrong with that either, right? And I will eventually get one, and I can't wait to share it with you. But for today, my brother-in-law's Strider, this INKOSI, and I don't think there's a clear winner, man, unless you can pick one out. If you can pick one out, that's the winner. And I'm not trying to be vague. I'm just saying it's all it's personal preference, and your opinion matters more than anybody else's. Catch you on the flip side.